And this is one of those matchups. I think the team, it's going to be important for the team of Vaughan-Kastel-Sullivan. You see in the middle we have Eldrazi Tron versus Obzon. That's going to be one that's definitely difficult for Chad to win.
Yes. Anything with Tron in the name versus 3-color The Rock. That's bad news for The Rock.
All right, well, one spell resolve to go for Patrick. He wins the die roll, Lava Spikes, and passes the turn. Das sets up a Sensei's Divining Top for Patrick. Swift Spear, Chain Lightning upstairs, swing for 2 more. Let's make that 3, 6, 7, 8, put Das down to 12.
This is where you're going to check Das. He's going to want to find a Swords to Plowshares and a Counterbalance pretty quick here.
Yeah, he'll cast Ponder. Does not have a Counterbalance. Finds Terminus. That would take care of the Swift Spear. That could do that, right?
In theory. He'll need to get another white source. It looks like Volcanic Island, the other land in Das's hand.
He's going to draw Ponder. Looks like he does have a Scalding Tarn, so he can Miracle his Terminus, but he takes 1 more damage in doing it.
Also loses his Sensei's Divining Top if he's trading that here on Sullivan's turn.
Patrick draws again another Mountain. He's got Chain Lightning and Flame Rift in hand. He's most of the way there.
Yeah.
Mountain. Flame Rift, both players take 4. You see, Das has the card Counter Spell in his hand, but Patrick's going to try to empty as many cards as he can before that hits. Chain Lightning, Das down to 5. Swing, and this is an important one. You see Das is going to tap the Divining Top to Miracle Terminus. He will have to fetch and put himself to 4 here.
Put himself to 4 and shuffle away his Divining Top.
Yeah, Patrick Fire Blasts him with it on the stack.
Forget about that one.
The turn 3 off burn. Yeah, he's good. Got him. And that's a huge win for Patrick Sullivan, especially game 1 in this matchup is one that can favor the Miracles player.
And this is the kind of burn that, or the kind of game that Sullivan has really crafted his deck to play this weekend. Again, no Searing Blazes in the main deck. He's just going upstairs, and that's all he wants to do. That facilitates a lot more turn 3 kills.
Yeah, and I mean, generally, you talk about a card like Searing Blaze, right? Because Patrick's not playing Searing Blaze, he is playing Flame Rift. And how, like, you saw him had exactly enough damage there. If you change that Flame Rift to a Searing Blaze, it's not clear that he even wins that game.
Right. Then you start to worrying about Das on tapping with counter spell mana, maybe producing that counterbalance.
All right, Ryan, so we're going to look at the sideboards. A quick game for Patrick Sullivan, and he needed it. His teammate Robert Vaughn in Standard mulliganed to 3, lost game 1 to Zan Sayed.
3 is not a large number of cards to start a game with.
No,
though.
Especially when you're a ramp deck.
This team has been very confident in Vaughn's deck.
I don't think Ramp can win on mullis to 3, though. Yeah, but you are right. Vaughn's deck, only 1 loss in the tournament so far. It's a 4-color Marvel build, something that certainly, as this team goes late, we'd like to get a look at that one.
Right.
But let's look at some sideboards for these 2 players. So, Anurag Das just lost on turn 3. I'm not even sure Counterbalance would have saved him there.
No, it would be a little slower. They'd have to blind counter something or trade up the top and try to figure it out.
All right, so what are we looking at? Just about any counter spell I think he'll start with.
Not the Red Blast, but Flusterstorm seems fine. Wear Tear is good. It can deal with Eidolon of the Great Revel, and you can expect some number of Sulfuric Vortex as well. Engineered Explosives is a little bit slow to answer creatures. It might be too slow. If you're able to stem the bleeding in the early game, it can be playable, though. Snapcaster Mage is going to be pretty good here. It can trade in combat, cast another one of your spells back.
Yeah, on Patrick's side, the big hit, and one of the reasons that Burn players have started to think that they may be favored in this matchup is the 4 copies of Exquisite Firecraft to start out his sideboard.
Yep, as long as you're able to get a Spell Mastery online, that's just going to be 4 upstairs, uncounterable.
Yeah, and what's important is that Miracles does not really have life gain.
Right, the best they can do is Swords their own stuff, and Patrick's going to try to stop that from even happening if it's possible with 2 copies of Sulfuric Vortex coming off the sideboard as well. Yeah,
and especially when you look at a list like Anurag Das's, no copies of Monastery Mentor and very low on Snapcaster Mages. The idea that he's going to Swords to Plowshares his own creatures, well, he doesn't really play creatures.
Right.
I mean, he's going to Entreat and then Swords and Aim. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
It's not very mana efficient. And the other card that Sullivan might be looking at is Sudden Shock. If you
more uncounterable?
Uncounterable, and if you expect mentors that can stop them from stealing games that way.
Now, it's not completely uncounterable, right?
It can be hit by the counterbalance just because that's a trigger that will go on the stack.
But I can't spin my top to set it up. If you Sudden Shock me, the only thing I can do is immediately flip whatever my top card is, and if it's a 2, I get it.
Exactly, and frequently you'll see Miracles player float Wear Tear on the top of their deck, so good chance that one doesn't work out if the counter top is set up. At that point, though, Sullivan's basically looking at exactly Exquisite Firecraft.
Sullivan showing how to burn things up in Legacy. Over at StarCityGames.com, we have our weekly sale, and this was the Valentine's Day special. We have some dual decks you could play, and most importantly, all red cards, because red is the color of passion, on sale this weekend. So Patrick's entire deck at a discount right now.
Do we have the Arabian Nights Mountains on sale? I don't
they're not
think
red.
so.
They're not red.
Right.
They only produce red.
Not the entire deck.
But yes, that goes on all weekend, so you can pick up those cards today and check in tomorrow morning on Monday for the next week's sale over at StarCityGames.com.
And if you're looking to get into Legacy, Burn is one of the cheaper options, though. Like most decks in Legacy, the mana base is kind of prohibitively expensive. 20 Arabian Nights Mountains.
It's about $1,000.
Not cheap.
I think my favorite line. A lot of players play Burn because it's a more accessible Legacy deck, and Patrick shows up with $1,000 worth of basic lands. He's saying no, I have the money. I choose to play Burn.
The man knows who he is. I chose this life.
we had the options to buy different cards, but we didn't. Get ready for a second game here. Last round, he mentioned Patrick Sullivan, the first player to defeat Christopher Stagno in the tournament. Chris Stagno playing Miracles as well. That one went to 3. Patrick lost the first game, took the second 2.
And things certainly get better for Sullivan post-sideboard. And his deck just is going to care less about Entreat the Angels than it is going to care about Monastery Mentor as well.
And with Burn, actually not the only Burn player into day 2, a second Burn player here in Legacy. What a matchup that would be.
The Burn Mirror in any format is not generally known for being particularly interesting. There's usually 1 or 2 things that there is a technically correct way to play with regard to sequencing, and once you figure that out, that's all you have to do. You can train a robot to do it, I'm pretty sure. Maybe a dog.
What I like about the Burn Mirrors is it's frequently like the worst list is favored in the mirror. No, hear me out for a second. A lot of the cards that are less good in Burn tend to be very good in the mirror matches.
True.
You know, like Patrick's made a really good call by playing Flame Rift this weekend. Okay, I bet that's a liability in the mirror.
Yeah, parity is not ideal in the mirror. Last time I really seriously played Burn was when War Leader's Helix was legal in Standard, and all you needed to figure out was that you leave up Skullcrack to beat Helix, and that was the entire match. It was the only decision you had to make, and you made it before you even sat down.
So it'd be like stuff like, let's say we played the Burn Mirror, right, and you had your Flame Rifts and your Price of Progresses, and I'm like, I'm playing Hellspark Elementals.
Also,
you'd be like, this is horrible. I can't win.
My lands are also mountains.
Right. He's like, I know your cards are good, but you'd have 8 dead cards, and I'd have, Hellsparks and Spark Elementals. That would be pretty good in the matchup.
Indeed.
All right, Patrick has kept on 6 on the draw. So for Anurag, starts off with a turn 1 Ponder. Patrick goes to work again with a Swift Spear, down to 19.
Here you see the most important card in Sullivan's deck. There is the Arabian Nights Mountain.
Counterbalance from Anurag. Speaking of most important cards, how about this one?
Currently, we're in blind flip territory, so we'll see if it happens.
Lava Spike and Sensei's Divining Top. Of all the 1-drops to counter Lava Spike with, this is the one that Patrick didn't want to see any of.
Right. Now the countertop is going to be set up. Sullivan does have at least 1 Exquisite Firecraft in his holdings, but he has a lot of work to do here.
Yeah, I mean, that plan can work if he had first gotten Anurag down to 10 or something like that. You see now Patrick drawing another mountain. His hand has 3 more mountains. He's got Anurag to 16. Says go. This is going to be a tough one.
Yep.
A fast countertop is very hard for Burn to get around.
Currently, Honorog looking at 3 lands on the top of his deck, and none of them are fetch lands, so it's a small win here.
Small win. You look at the other cards, though. He's got Snapcaster Mage in hand. He's got Ponder in the graveyard. I think he'll be just fine. Also a copy of just the literal card, Counterspell.
This is going to be an uphill battle for Sullivan.
And you see here, Honorog wanting to switch up those top cards of his deck. He'll use Snapcaster on Ponder and to give it a nice shuffle. 3 new cards for Counterbalance and Divining Top.
Yeah, so Force of Will is the new 3rd card. That one's not terribly relevant here. He already has Counter Top set up.
So I'm kind of interested, is Force of Will that it's still in post sideboard? I mean, what cards? Yeah, right?
So
what do you need to counter out of the burn deck?
Burn is, in many ways, a combo deck. It doesn't execute the same way as other combo decks.
If you resolve 6 spells, you win, which doesn't matter what. You don't have to do them on the same turn or anything.
Exactly. So you can't just sideboard out your free counter spell against the combo deck. You just have to leave at least some number in.
We'll reach a point where Patrick's going to start playing a lot of must counters.
Right.
And you see here for Honorog, Patrick played a 4th land and passed. I was interested to see if he was going to bluff an attack there. If he just swings with the 1/2. I mean, you can always like throw a burn spell into the counterbalance for prowess.
Right.
But now Honorog just in control. Patrick draws another mountain. Now Patrick does have 2 exquisite firecrafts, and Honorog's at 16. If he draws the last 2 firecrafts, he could do this.
He's going to need to get another instant or sorcery in his graveyard. Just Lava Spike currently, not yet a Spell Master.
He's getting these land floods out of the way. If you're going to pick a game, you know, because that's how probability works, right?
He has one to give.
Right. If I'm going to have to draw like this, I might as well do it on the turn where my opponent just naturally has countertop. And you see Monastery Swift Spear getting taken care of, thanks to the judgment of the council. Judge that Patrick should not have that 1/2 anymore.
I think this council has too much free time. Should be.
Why are they debating such matters?
They should be considering more serious issues.
Price of Progress, the draw for Patrick. I mean, it's not going to resolve. If it does, it gives him Spell Mastery at least.
Patrick still has a good amount of time, only under a Snapcaster Mage currently. Frequently what you want to do when your opponent controls Counterbalance and Sensei's Divining Top is try to get to a point where you can cast multiple spells in the same turn. Currently he can cast Price Progress Firecraft, but he already knows that Firecraft will resolve. It's Counterbalance proof. So he wants to get to a point where he maybe has a 1 and a 2, or maybe 2 2s and a 1, and try to cast those spells all on the same turn. Maybe actually resolve 1.
Yeah, Patrick has lands 6 and 7 in hand. So if he wants to set up for that big turn you're talking about, it's just fine. He doesn't really have to be efficient here.
This is also a reasonable window here, as Honorog is tapped down to just 1 mana.
Yeah, you see that card Counterspell in his hand. He may have to use a Force of, Patrick's trying to get him to use cards in awkward spots. So he plays Price of Progress on Honorog's end step. Now Honorog does get to put a 2 on top of his deck here with Brainstorm.
And we'll be showing Patrick that counter spell that he just put on top.
Right. So takes no damage, but now Patrick is a spell master, so he has 8 points of uncounterable burn.
Halfway there.
Yeah, I mean, we're still just, he's hoping to naturally draw the last 2 Firecrafts.
Stranger Things.
It is interesting, though, how much this matchup changed with just 1 card. Imagine, before the printing of Exquisite Firecraft, this game we're looking at would just be over. You know, you'd say there's no way Patrick can get 15 damage across.
Right. Patrick's deck will have to naturally draw the Exquisite Firecrafts. It is unfortunate that there's not good card filtering that is legal in Legacy to help him make that happen.
No way. You see as he draws the 8th mountain, just no way to avoid this one.
Completely unavoidable scenario in the Legacy format.
If only there were good cantrips in the format. Red could just get a Brainstorm, you know, and then it would be, this deck would be great. You do sometimes, I think it's something that there's been that for the last, 20 years, people have talked about, I play Burn Splashing Brainstorm. Many have tried, and then they always end up coming back to the same conclusion of, no, this isn't good.
When Treasure Cruise was legal in Modern, there were some Treasure Cruise burn decks. That's a little bit different, though. Actually drawing 3 cards is very different from brainstorming.
Well, in Burn, I'm not sure it would be, but point taken.
Burn is one of the ones where it's actually most pronounced because you have to use every card in your hand to kill your opponent. So putting 2 back tends to matter more.
Yeah, well, like, it navigates land floods, right? You can put, like, I bet Patrick could put a couple of these mountains back if he could.
There's a chance.
He's got one.
He may not have the draw that he would idealize.
No, we're just setting up for Jaws of Stone. He's going to play that. It's going to be really good. And Anurag will have to find a 6.
He'd just counter it with a Terminus. You know, it'd be nice.
It's a 6.
Hammer of Begarden. He just counter with Force Will, I suppose.
Fire Blast, the draw from Patrick. He just keeps taking 2 off this Snapcaster Mage. Now 6 turns away. Yeah, that's what we're drawing to. That's our out. It's going to throw Anurag off by so much when Patrick casts it that he's going to forget that he has both Counterspell and Force of Will and Terminus on top of his deck.
Right, yeah. Anurag had no idea that he was playing Shadowmoor Limited.
It's going to be real good. Just wait. Yeah, Patrick, for good measure, he'll play another mountain. We're up to now 9.
Cast 3 Firecrafts off of this many mountains.
Entreat the Angels looks like it's found its way into Anurag's hand. Or rather, into the top cards of his deck. And he just draws it, not even miracling it. That's gross.
He's going to get there off the Snapcaster Mage.
Nah, but you know, it's like when you you watch someone just draw have himself draw Entreat, be like, yeah, sure, it's fine.
So frequently discipline-controlled players, what sets them apart is their ability to do nothing when many players want to do something.
I want to make an army of angels. Are you telling me I'm wrong?
And the deck that does that better than any other deck is Miracles. It very much rewards doing nothing ever.
You're definitely telling me I'm wrong, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Anurag's going to win the second game. So now 1 game advantage for Zan Syed, Neeraj Shukla, and Anurag has taken a game. So all of them now 1 game from winning their respective matches. And that fast countertop from Anurag didn't seem like Patrick was able to compete much with.
Right, you know, he mulliganed to 6 in game 2, and a lot of mountains off the top for Sullivan, not to mention that on turn 3, countertop was set up.
All right, our first result in. It's the second loss of the tournament for Robert Vaughn. He's defeated 2-0 by Zan Syed. So at this point, it is back up against the wall for both Chad Castell and Patrick Sullivan. They need to win all the games from here on out.
Abzan's going to have a tough bout with beating Tron in 2 games.
So get ready for game 3. We can talk about over at the StarCGames.com Creature Collection. This is Patrick Sullivan's basically favorite card we've ever had in the Creature Collection. It is the February promo for game night. It's, of course, the Corgi Firewalker. This card, this little pup will help you against all sorts of Legacy Burn players. You can get him on playmats, on sleeves, and in player bundles. Available now over at StarCityGames.com/Creature Collection.
Core Firewalker is not bad against burn decks.
Yeah, white for a 2/2. Pro red. We'll just put Dragon's Claw ability on it just for good measure.
They don't even really give you cards with protection from anything anymore.
No, they definitely moved away from protection. Maybe because it's impossible to interact with.
And yet they still print cards like Bastion Inventor.
Yeah, that's... You see something like Core Firewalker, like, I'm playing Burn, you play Core Firewalker, like, what am I actually supposed to do about this?
Pick them up.
right, that's not interesting.
No.
You know, just dismember it. Okay, I have to play Dismember in my Burn deck. Yeah, and then we start getting, you know, oh yeah, we can Ghost Fire it. We can, yeah. I don't know. There we go, that's a Burn. Got him. Game 3, we'll see Patrick Sullivan back on the play. He doesn't have too much of a defense against it. Like, turn 2 counterbalance is the plan for Anurag. And Patrick doesn't have too much defense against it.
Well, on the play, he's trying to just be more, have a better offense to where the point where the counterbalance just stops mattering. Ideally, Sullivan will like to have cast 3 spells before Anurag actually has a window to cast the counterbalance. He wants turn 1 Swift Spear or Goblin Guide, turn 2 Lava Spike, Chain Lightning, or a second creature, what have you.
Yeah, and the bad news for Patrick, not only was he on a mulligan, he was on the draw. His opponent had a turn 2 counterbalance. Then Anurag blind flipped the top off it to counter a 1-drop. And then that
was an above average flip.
Yeah. Patrick draw 7, he's keeping at least one Exquisite Firecraft in hand, and in this time it is Anurag on the mulligan.
Mulligan's going to be significantly less punishing for the Miracles player. He just uses way fewer resources to play his game. Just needs to find 1 copy of top, 1 copy of Counterbalance. Brainstorm and Ponder can get him there, whereas Sullivan just has to play the cards he's dealt.
Yeah, but they have it's so much uphill work for their team. Chad Castell looking like he's on a mulligan on his game. He's down a game. He's playing Obzon and against Tron. I mean, okay, their comeback starts with Patrick winning this match, but the modern one, that's not looking good.
Right. In that kind of matchup, Castell is likely on Stony Silence or bust.
Well, yeah, and then because Eldrazi Tron, unlike regular Tron, isn't even as phased by a card like Stony Silence.
It is, though. If they're not able to execute with Expedition Map, particularly if they're playing Walking Ballista, it significantly diminishes the quality of the deck.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely good against them. It's not a sure bet it's going to cheese them out, like depending on their draw.
The thing about Eldrazi Tron is sometimes Green-Red Tron, for example, can actually destroy Stony Silence.
That's true. They don't have a way to get rid of it.
Eldrazi Tron just can't.
All right, well, we'll see if they can get the Legacy match, then maybe move over to Modern. Patrick starts off with just Mountain, no 1-drop. Ponder for Anurag. You see a copy of one of those sideboarded Flusterstorms in his opener. I was surprised to see no 1-drop on Patrick's side. His deck, a good 20 spells on 1 mana.
Maybe an end-step Lightning Bolt, something like that. We'll find out. It could be that the hand is maybe heavy on Eidolon or Great Revel. Maybe has some Price of Progress.
Yeah, we see, looks like Sulfuric Vortex, Exquisite Firecraft, Eidolon of the Great Revel in the hand.
It's hard to ship a Vortex.
Well, it's an interesting burn plan here. It's not the, 3 damage for 1s, like we saw game 1, where you just kind of like dumped burn as fast as possible. This is a bunch of recurrent burn spells. Stuff like Eidolon and Sulfuric Vortex. They're not, they're not like these high efficiency burn spells, but they're the ones that, if unanswered, could do 20.
Right. They have the kind of ceiling where it just takes way fewer cards to actually win the game.
Right. And no play on the first turn for Patrick starts the second one. Plays Eidolon of the Great Revel. He also picked up a Flame Rift that turn.
This is not a matchup where taking 6 off of your Flame Rift is going to especially matter.
Try here. Patrick can start with a swing with his 2/2. He'll first go for Sulfuric Vortex. This interesting choice by Anurag, actually. He has a Wear Tear in hand, so may not have to Force of Will this. But he has some options, right? These are both enchantments,
right?
Both the Eidolon and the Vortex.
Too bad he can't fuse that Wear Tear.
Vortex resolves, and Patrick actually just passes. Does not want to attack into a Snapcaster Mage. So he says go. On end step, Anurag uses the enchantment half of Wear Tear to destroy the Eidolon. But he goes to 15 to do it. So Eidolon still was a burn spell, and Vortex getting in for damage too.
And now if Anurag has a Snapcaster Mage, that's really bad news for Sullivan. It would just flash back that Wear Tear and get rid of that Sulfuric Vortex as well.
I mean, if Anurag had the choice to counter it, he does have a Force of Will in his hand. I feel like if he doesn't have Snapcaster Mage, then he had to counter this Vortex.
Right. It's not one that you want sticking around, that's for sure.
Yeah, winning through that card's so hard.
It's just a higher impact use of your Force of Will than almost anything in Sullivan's deck as well.
Now Patrick's going to go to work. Here's Flame Rift. 4 to both players. I think he's got another Flame Rift in hand. What I like here is that all his burn spells are right now have hit both players. Another Flame Rift. You see their life total's about the same.
Right. And Anurag has a lot of counterspells in hand. I would expect him to pick a fight over a Flame Rift. Going down to 11 is more a liability against burn than it ever has been historically, given the access to the Exquisite Firecrafts. you have to start picking battles earlier than you ever had before.
Yeah, well, he's got to do something, right? If he goes to 7 here and 5 on the upkeep from Vortex, 4 from the fetch land, then he's dead to Firecraft.
Right.
So something's got to give right now.
Yep.
Patrick, 2 cards remaining in hand. We know one of them is Exquisite Firecraft. It's really the finisher in this matchup. The card Anurag has to be most scared of. See teammate Zan Sayed, winner 2-0 in Standard, and Anurag now conferring on the play. This second Flame Rift does give Patrick Spell Mastery.
Right.
So you were talking about some interaction. We know Anurag has a Force of Will and a Flusterstorm in hand. And you were thinking, because we didn't see a Force on the Vortex, possible that he has a Snapcaster.
Right. So if he has access to Force Blue card Snapcaster Mage, I imagine that Force of Will of Flame Rift, Snapcaster, get rid of the Sulfuric Vortex is his best line here.
So the line he chooses is to Force of Will the Flame Rift, pitching Ponder. So he goes to 10 off the Force of Will, now goes down to 9 on a fetch land. Patrick's expecting Snapcaster Mage, and Anurag will deliver. It's going to be Snapcaster Mage tearing away the Sulfuric Vortex. So Anurag stable at 9 right now.
You know, notably, though, he just has whatever actual counterspells he has. He has not established counterbalance in this game.
Well, there's also the concern. His last counterspell is Flusterstorm. His hand is Flusterstorm and Treat. I'm not sure. I think he may have waited long enough where this Flusterstorm in hand is no longer a counter. You see Patrick drawing another Sulfuric Vortex. Ugh.
He had to get the Vortex off the table, though. Using Flusterstorm on either of those Flame Rifts would not have been great.
Right, because then he can't. I mean, he's just choked on mana. I'm not saying it's the wrong play, but more so that I don't know that he'll get to convert Flusterstorm.
More demonstrating the folly of having Flusterstorm in his deck.
Yeah, you see main phase Bolt from Patrick. You know, you can't really Flusterstorm it. Anurag goes to 6. Patrick then plays another Vortex. And we're just seeing Anurag. Yes, he has a counterspell in hand. No, it doesn't do anything.
And Sullivan has that Firecraft.
Yeah, I should have this locked up.
Yep, going to 4 here on the upkeep for Anurag.
Draw, he'll put Patrick Sullivan to 8. Patrick goes to 6 from his own Vortex, but Anurag's at 4. Here's Firecraft. You can't counter that. You might have Force plus Flusterstorm, but those don't play. Spell Mastery, uncounterable, 2 spells in the yard. Yeah, just to double check. Anurag will shake it, nodding of the head. Yep, that looks good. It's going to be the game and match for Patrick Sullivan. So he has won a match for his team as well. And now the round will hinge on the modern matchup of Neeraj Shukla and Chad Kastel.
We'll find out exactly how game 2 is going, but this is going to be an uphill battle for Kastel. This is among the worst matchups for Abzan in Modern.
Yeah, down a game on a mulligan against Eldrazi Tron. We talked about how it was an uphill fight. Let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and look at that match. So, on Kastel's side, he's got 3 lands and a Liliana of the Veil in play. But things are on Neeraj's side. Has a slew of threats. A Walking Ballista on 1, a Matter Reshaper, a Chalice of the Void set to 1. Got 3 lands. It's 2 Tron pieces and a Sanctum of Ugin. So, no big mana yet.
Liliana of the Veil is not very impressive against Matter Reshaper and Walking Ballista.
No, what Chad does have a copy, looks like Gideon Ally of Zendikar in hand, but it doesn't look like he can cast it just yet. Also of note, Lost Legacy was cast by Kastel earlier to remove all the Thought-Knot Seers from Neeraj's deck.
All right, that's something.
And so Chad actually, the line he picks though, he didn't have the 4th land. So he pluses Liliana, discards the Gideon, plays out his last card, which is a copy of Fulminator Mage. So it looks like he's hoping to make inroads with this Liliana.
Yeah, using this Fulminator Mage as a blocker. Currently, no access to Tron. Just 2 different Tron lands, so using that doesn't matter just yet. Both creatures will swing at Liliana. Chad is willing to accept the free block. He puts Fulminator in front of Walking Ballista. Ryan, this was a pretty risky play. If Neeraj had a 4th land, this could have backfired for Chad. just being able to activate the Ballista, that would change the texture of this combat.
Yeah, you could kill the Liliana or the Fulminator. So now Liliana goes down to 1. 3 from the Reshaper, 1 from the Ballista. But Niraj just lost a creature for nothing.
Kastel had to go down to no cards to get here anyway, so it was a high-risk play, but he didn't really have much in the way of good options.
Payoff is there. Another Ballista from Niraj's hand finishes off the Planeswalker. So now we're in a top deck war. It's never where you want to be against a Tron deck.
Right. Especially with that Chalice on 1 that's going to shut down Path to Exile, which is often going to be one of the Abzan deck's better cards.
But a big draw from Chad Kastel. It's a copy of Tarmogoyf. He's going to play that and then use Fulminator Mage to take care of Urza's Tower. And Tarmogoyf is large right now. We have Artifact, Creature, Land, Planeswalker.
Things are actually looking good for Kastel here.
A Ghost Quarter the draw. Yeah, the players are counting it up. I think we're seeing 6-7. Yeah. Huge hit for Kastel, and the Fulminator helps it on its way. So Tarmogoyf will attack. Niraj is going to chump block. He's hoping to assemble some mana. He finds Chalice of the Void. There are no zeros in their deck.
No, probably going to put that one in the hand. Casting that for 2 is not nothing. It would turn off future Tarmogoyfs for Kastel.
Urza piece. Urza's mine, so he has, I believe that's a duplicate of the one he has, however. And Chad just keeps this going. His draw that turn was Lingering Souls.
Yeah. Niraj under significant pressure here.
Yeah, and I was saying in a top deck fight, you don't want to try to top deck against Tron, but it looks like Chad may have pulled it off.
He was able to manage the resources of the Tron deck. You see, there's actually no lands currently that tap for more than 1 mana in any capacity.
Goyf, Lingering Souls, Lingering Souls. Chad Kastel with Abzan evens it up. And Patrick Sullivan checking on the time for the players. 18 minutes still remaining. It should be plenty for game 3. A big steal on the draw, or rather on the mulligan on the play for Chad. That's a really dangerous spot.
Right, now he has to win a game on the draw against a very bad matchup, though.
Okay, so Ryan, I wanted to talk about some of the sideboards here. We saw Lost Legacy out of the sideboard for Chad Kastel, exiling away the Thought-Knot Seers. It's a really interesting strategy, at least for the matchup.
Yeah, it's really hard to recover after your opponent takes the best card from their hand, and usually they're casting it on turn 3 just through the access to either drawing Tron or Eldrazi Temple. So just using the Lost Legacy to get those out of the deck, that makes sense. Or if your hand is going to be weak to Reality Smasher, hitting that one is good too.
And remember, on table 2, the winner of this match will be in great shape to make it into the top 4. So players are going to rediscuss their sideboards now that Niraj is on the play. Now, over on our YouTube channel at Star City Games, we, of course, have replays of all the events of this weekend. Both these teams that we saw play in yesterday, both winning rounds, so you can see all the different decks and different matches from the weekend. Those will, of course, come up on our archives. We also feature our split second series versus series of both Standard, Modern, Commander, Magic Online playtesting, and a whole lot more. You can subscribe today over at youtube.com/StarCityGames.
Tons of great content on the channel. Be sure to check that one out.
But it's interesting, on the plan where you're going to Lost Legacy away cards in his deck, it seems to be that you just are he's overloading on discard in this matchup.
Discard is really only one of the few ways he actually wins. The problem is the card gets way worse on the draw.
Right. I mean, if your opponent has turn 3 Tron, your Lost Legacy's doesn't really play.
Right.
Also, Thought-Knot Seer on the play is a pretty good bet to come down before Lost Legacy.
Right.
So maybe it comes back out, is what you might suggest. It's just too slow this time.
It's possible. The issue is most of his best cards, the Fulminator Mage, the Lost Legacy, they cost 3 mana. So you have to kind of hope that maybe the Tron deck stumbles a little bit.
Yeah, looking at other cards in sideboard for Chad, he had 2 Fulminators, which are certainly in. Tireless Tracker, Creeping Corrosion, Abzan Charm. That Gideon did come in out of the sideboard, but a lot of these cards like, Damnation, Collective Brutality, they're not really matching up for this deck.
The other significant sideboard card he does have a Ghost Quarter, which can slow down the assembly of quality lands. The Eldrazi Tron deck can find basic wastes, though. 2 copies in Shukla's deck.
Yeah, one of the things that Chad can hope for. Last game, Niraj's deck had that mix of Eldrazi lands and Tron lands where they don't add up right. You know, Sanctum of Ugin plus 2 Tron lands. And you see a team on the right discussing Chad's opening hand. Not good enough. He's gonna send it back.
And you have to be really critical of your Abzan hands on the draw against the Tron deck for sure.
Well, there's just a lot of hands, even if it's not good enough to just be lands and spells.
Right. If you're just casting your creatures and they're just casting their creatures, you're in trouble. You need to actually disrupt their game plan. There are some decks where just kind of casting your Tarmogoyfs, what have you, you can pull ahead. Liliana of the Veil. It just isn't a matchup where those are the rules of engagement.
So they go to 6. Teammates approve, and they're going to scry one, looks like, to the top. They have the setup that they want, and that's going to be it. Okay, correct. We'll go to the bottom. All right, game 3 underway. It's going to be Tron piece into Expedition map for Niraj.
That is a very scary start.
Scary when it's followed with Cavern of Souls, less scary.
Good chance that the map finds Eldrazi Temple under these circumstances.
Certainly, you see, it looks like multiple Thought-Knot Seers in his hand. Niraj will crack map, and that might be just what he's going for. Turn 3 Thought-Knot, turn 4 Thought-Knot. Doesn't sound half bad. These lands that tap for more than 1 mana, a force in both Modern and Legacy.
And Vintage, and Commander, Cube. Anywhere that they allow you to play this broken nonsense.
We'll go back to Shukla. Expect 1 Thought-Knot to hit here. And there we go. Thought-Knot Seer is the play. It and its Eldrazi kin sitting in his hand. You see Matter Reshaper, Reality Smasher. Chad's going to Path to Exile the Thought-Knot Seer with the trigger on. And now they get to exile, and we see the hand from Chad. It is 3 more lands and an Abrupt Decay, a Tireless Tracker, and a Liliana the Last Hope.
This hand is fairly weak in this matchup.
Well, yeah, a card like Abrupt Decay doesn't really... It's going to be hard for Chad to make that card matter.
Right.
You know, looking at Niraj's hand, we know he has both Reality Smasher and Matter Reshaper in his hand. One of those can't be hit by the card, and the other one, I don't think Niraj cares if it is.
Best card in this hand, in this matchup, is going to be the Tireless Tracker.
Yeah, that's what Niraj is going to take. So leaves Chad with some lands and a Planeswalker. A lot more work having to be done.
And at this point, Niraj just has 4 lands on the battlefield. Even a Fulminator Mage has not accomplished very much.
And he'll play the card that he drew off the top. It's a copy of Tarmogoyf. We have both Artifact and Instant in the graveyard, so it's going to be a 2/3.
That one's going to need to get a little bit bigger to matter in this matchup.
It's a Batter Skull to draw for Shukla.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Thanks to the Path to Exile, if he has a land, he can just play that on curve. But it looks like they're thinking bigger, looking at both Reality Smasher and Walking Ballista. And it's going to be Smasher, Swing. Now, I need something. They actually did not have the mana for it until Path to Exile was cast. So that one helping out. Chad's down to 15.
And that is the thing about Path to Exile in this matchup. It is one of Abzan's better cards, but also the drawback is very significant. Being able to cleanly answer a creature of any size, that matters a lot against the Eldrazi Tron deck.
but they're going to use that mana if you give it to them.
Exactly.
Inquisition of Kozilek. We see Batterskull, Reality Smasher, Ugin. You can't take any of those. Matter Reshaper, Walking Ballista, those are both options. So it looks like part of the strategy here, if Chad's going to win, he needs to just hope that Niraj bricks a bunch of lands. If those 3 cards on the top, Smasher, Batterskull, Ugin, they can only cast 1. It's the second Smasher.
Right. Even the second Smasher is going to be hard for Kastel to beat, though. He'll need something like that sideboard Damnation.
And if their plan is to keep him off lands, then it looks like they're going to take the Matter Reshaper.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he'd want the sideboard Damnation. I mean, ideally, I guess he'd hit a Maelstrom Pulse and then just throw one of these extra lands to it.
Yeah.
Certainly, if Shukla starts drawing enough lands to cast, say, Ugin, this is probably over.
Even the Batterskull plus Equip is going to be very difficult for Kastel to recover from.
Well, he's going to try to race, at least for now. He uses the Inquisition, the Ballista, and a fetch land to pump his Tarmogoyf all the way up to a 5/6. So I guess it can block if he wants to go that route.
Yep, that is good.
But we'll see. If he goes into a defensive state where he starts blocking these 5/5s, then he's going to eventually get overpowered by all those hitters in Niraj's hand.
Right. As long as Niraj is able to produce more mana sources, eventually these cards will start being cast.
So they play Liliana, shrink the Reality Smasher, but no attacks. They do have to take that defensive position. And for Shukla, it's an Eldrazi. It's a land off the top. It's the second Tron piece, Urza's Tower.
Perhaps more significant here, just the 5th mana source. Now he can actually cast Batterskull.
Right, before he could only play Smasher and Matter Reshaper. Now he has more options. So land 5, and that'll be the play. Batterskull makes a Germ Token. And he's threatening next turn to just equip this Reality Smasher.
Yep. That would be bigger than the Tarmogoyf.
A draw for the Abzan player, Chad Kastel. It's just another land. Because they've taken a more defensive game plan here, I don't know. He's got to win on a lot of axes.
Some deliberation on how to use the Liliana here. Best bet might be to -2 and hope to hit a Tarmogoyf.
But even then, does that get him anywhere, right? Like, Niraj probably still equips Batterskull and swings.
He can double block and actually kill the Smasher with that board position.
We're putting Niraj to 29. It keeps them alive, but then you have to start thinking, how are they winning?
That's going to be tough no matter what Kastel does.
Some deliberation here for Chad Kastel. He will -2. Gets 2 lands. Nothing back into his hand. And he'll just pass. 2 cards in hand as well. That's a big win for Shukla. Draws Walking Ballista. Right now it can only make it a 2/2. But that would be enough to take care of Liliana if they choose to do it.
With the Tron player being pretty flush with resources, it's really going to be Niraj's game to lose from this point. A lot of options available. It looks like Matter Reshaper plus Walking Ballista is a line being considered. Seeing whether they want to equip the Batterskull Reality Smasher. The potential downside of that play is Kastel could maybe have a Path to Exile that would break that up.
Right. There's some temptation here to just... They're actually going to swing both creatures. I would say if they take a defensive line, certainly they have the better late game. If they swing both, Tarmogoyf steps in front of Smasher. And Abrupt Decay kills the Germ token.
Now I believe the plan will be use the Walking Ballista to clean up that Tarmogoyf.
Yep, Walking Ballista on 2 uses 1 counter to shoot the Tarmogoyf. So they keep a 1/1 and the Tarmogoyf's gone. Just 1 card in hand remaining for Chad Kastel. They'll actually get rid of the Ballista to put Liliana down to 1. They just don't want Chad getting a Tarmogoyf back this turn.
Yep. Just completely cutting off any resources that Kastel has.
Well, that makes sense because their plan next turn is to play this second Smasher. So they just didn't want to see a 5/6 blocker.
Right.
Gavany Township from Chad. Karn the draw for Niraj. And here is that Smasher. With no 5/6 blocker, it's going to be free to take care of Liliana. And that's exactly what it will do. Chad draws Maelstrom Pulse to hit.
You can deal with the Batter Skull anyway.
I suppose he can kill the Smasher if he wants to get rid of his hand, but there's a situation where it feels like, Ryan, every turn that Chad is hanging on here, you know, staying alive, but
he's
turning, yeah.
He's just lower on resources, so every turn Niraj is going to be able to apply more pressure. So he peels some kind of 1-for-1 answer, remains behind on the board.
Kills Batterskull, activates the Shambling Vent. No cards left for Chad. A draw from Tron. It's another Tron piece, but it's not full Tron, so he just has 6 lands normally. But we're now just 1 land of any type away from having Karn.
Yep.
A swing with Smasher, a play of Matter Reshaper. Things are looking good for Shukla. The draw is Tarmogoyf from Chad Kastel. That blocker will work. It's still a 5/6. Gavany Township might even make it a 6/7. But if Niraj hits a land, none of this matters.
Dismember also not a bad one.
No, not at all. You see he's going to go ahead and swing. Artifact was added. It looks like, yeah, we have Source Planeswalker was added, so it's a 6/7 now that Liliana died.
Mm-hmm. Still is going to get eaten by either of these creatures after Dismember.
Yeah, even after Dismember and Township, it's still not enough. So Tarmogoyf blocks Smasher. Chad can't play around the spell. And then here is Dismember for the Tarmogoyf. Tarmogoyf will shrink down to a 1/2, make that a 2/3 from Township. So 2 damage will trample over. Chad will take a total of 5. He'll drop, looks like 4 is the end result. A draw of a card, but this isn't going to do it. He's been behind most of the game. It'll be Lingering Souls. A turn, if he had that a couple turns ago, he maybe could have stolen that with Lingering Souls plus Gavany Township. But at this point, it looks like we're too late for that. Expedition Map from Niraj Shukla. It's going to create him a ton of mana. He can find his 3rd Tron, please.
Cast Ugin.
Cast it, play it, cast Ugin this turn, kill all the spirits, and swing for the win.
It looks clean to me.
It looks like Shukla knows it too. Chad does. They knew that the Ugin was there. That's going to sweep up the spirits, and it is the team of Zan Syed, Niraj Shukla, and Anurag Das. They take the round, and they stay at table 2 here with the win.